Good evening, good evening, good evening. I come to you in love. I come to you in full life with good news and full of information. And I'm excited about sharing some things with you tonight. So, part of my study, part of what I'm going to bring forth is to help uplift we people here at United States of North America, the land, the people. Okay. Some of the information that I bring forth is not, you're not heard it before in this way. It's not going to be familiar. Sometimes when that happens, our tendency is to reject it. But I hope that I will point you in the right direction so that you can verify everything I say. And I hope that you'll have an open mind about what I want to share, because it is in love and it is for the purpose of increasing our level of functioning. How can I say it? To make sure that our needs are met here. It's to help us walk in confidence, not fear. Help us walk in love, not fear or hate. All right. And help us to be able to recognize what is true and versus what is our opinion. And that's really important to do if we're talking about moving groups of people forward, finding out areas where, or identifying areas where we agree, where we can come together, acknowledging there are differences, but not allowing those differences to hinder us from being our best selves in a number of areas. So I don't want to tell you too much about myself because that's not what it's about, but I do want to give you a little bit of history about myself so that you know from where I come, how I develop my observations, my hypotheses about what is and what isn't. Now, there might be times that I will use words that you've not heard of, or maybe that you assume that you know the meaning of. I encourage you, please, because I don't want this to be 3 hours, 4 hours, but I have a lot to say. But please say, I don't know what she's talking about, but I'm going to look that up, because I guarantee you, I do not do it with the intent to talk over your head. I don't, not one of those people who feels good when someone doesn't know what I'm saying. It's just that I do know that this lesson is more so for people who appreciate the meaning of words, who will go look up the etymology of words. That's who I'm directing it to. And there'll be other presentations that I make that might not be, as high level when it comes to what I'm sharing, but it's necessary, okay, because I've been studying a lot and I need to share this. And I also want to thank some of the people who have helped me by their teachings, right? They've helped me develop this presentation, this observation, and it's important. And today is the 29th of August, 2024 in the Gregorian calendar. I think we're like in the second day of the moon cycle. Okay. Some people I want to thank. Not met all of them personally, but I've been influenced by their presentations on YouTube, and there are people who they verify, they substantiate what they say. That's very important, because just to follow someone because they're charismatic or they seem kind or whatever, that's not a reason to trust anyone, because some of the most harmful people are very charming. All right. So I want to say thank you to these people because they've helped me develop a perspective over a large body of knowledge and information that, had I not had the understanding that they have, I wouldn't be able to develop this knowing that I have gathered over the last couple of years. So, first of all, and as I mentioned, these folks, please go check out their YouTubes or, Google their names. You'll probably find them. They might not all have their own channels. Most of them do, but you'll be able to find others who will highlight their work because it's been so impactful. So, let me see right here. A couple folks. Oh, no. I don't have it right here. I'm not going to flip too much. I'm going to mention a couple names. And this is not in the order of their impact. I tell you, it is not. And but it's all been helpful. So Taj Tariq Bey, his teaching on the passport, the U.S. passport. Let's see. James C. Lovett and his teachings on the passport. Let's see. Fearless Floyd. Jonah Bay. Yusuf L. Lamont Maurice L. David Wynn Miller, rest in peace. And where's Mr. Straight's first name? Mr. Straight, he's a good teacher. I like him. He shows you, he points you to what he has read and gives his understanding of it. So on all points, I'm not going to say I agree with all of them, because if I did, well, I mean, it's ridiculous to say that I could, because they all have different viewpoints of a large body of knowledge. They're all well-read, well-studied, highly intelligent, and lovers of people and want what is right. Okay. Who am I? I'm a woman, Aboriginal indigenous to this land known as Amarak, America, North America specifically. My folks, 3/4 of them are from the South. My maternal lineage, heritage, her inheritance. Grandmother had land near the Rome, Georgia area of the United States of America, Amarak. Okay. So this matter has to do with birthright. It has to do with peace. It has to do with order and the times we're moving into. Where we are now is this. We're either going to get along as people and move into a more peaceful way of doing things, or we're going to destroy ourselves, because the type of weapons, the type of destruction that could take place if we keep moving forward with war and debates and using assets to settle debts and things like that. If that happens, I'm not, look, I stay near the Capitol. It's not good when you think that there's some that might be enemies to the United States Corporation Company, right? So I say this with confidence in a positive, loving way, because we're so close to having the right thoughts, language, and deeds that move us into peace and move us into exploration of things that have not been accomplished in our memories. Now, we all know that there's technology that is way superior to what we see now that was used in the past. Okay. So there is a way to go back to that. And there's a way to even go to things that have not been documented before. We're not the only people in the whole universe. That makes no sense to think we're the only people, but that we're the only beings. All right. So without getting into my reading on that, I could get into that. What iteration of being we are here, that's a whole nother thing. But like I said, I'm a lover of people. I used to work in a trade for a long time. I used to be a hairstylist. And with that, I always geared my services toward professional people. So I had people from many different disciplines come sit in my chair. And there were times when I felt like I should have paid them because I learned so much from them. PhDs in various fields, attorneys had their perspectives, medical doctors, nurses, healthcare, whatever, professionals, teachers, accountants. I mean, the point I'm making is to say that I received much learning because I was exposed to many different people, and I would learn about their what they did for a living. Some of them worked federal government jobs, and so I didn't learn about the details of their work or anything that was secret or what have you, but just some of the political things that influence what we experience here at the United States of America, Iraq. And so that contributed a lot to even my additional learning. All right, I have a background in social work. And with that, a lot of people don't know about social work education. You can choose so many different paths. You really have to get to know someone and find out about their experiences to know what their mentality is and their skill set and how they've developed even outside of what they were taught or exposed to in school. So, with that said, my field of practice, my specialties are housing issues, trauma-informed care, management, resource development, evaluation, compliance, evidence-based practices. I'm trying to write it down. These are things I was schooled in and things that I've applied in some of the settings in which I worked. Okay, so did I say trauma-informed care? All right, that's a big thing, trauma-informed care. And that has to do more so, and I know because I was the mentee of the woman who came up with the initiative to promote trauma-informed care at SAMHSA, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And knowing her and the whole team there at the Community Support Branch that put forth the toolkits, I know that there's a lot more for us to talk about because it kind of got skewed. Every therapist who's worth anything always, we know that everyone has a trauma history. Everyone has something that they've been through. So you don't need to have an initiative to tell therapists to remember that people have been through trauma. That's not what trauma-informed care initiative was about. And it's more so about helping people who work in various settings understand that the folks that they're dealing with have a trauma history. And with that, we must address the natural person in commerce, okay? So anywhere from first responders, knowing that they have their own traumas, right? So just for example, there should be, as much as there is a firehouse or any other kind of emergency setting, there should be professional mental health service providers for folks who are high functioning doing this work, that they're exposed to trauma all the time. And this is something that's important to me and that I look forward to helping fund and put out there. And then it doesn't just impact our mental health impacts all areas. It's an interplay relationship, our financial health, our housing, our transportation, what we've seen, how we process that, the trauma we receive vicariously through someone else, right? Just experiencing someone else who has experienced trauma can be a trauma on us as helpers and givers. All right. So, like I said, I love people, and I like to think do things in a way that I'm going to consider that I don't know the full answer, but I know what questions to ask. I don't pretend that I am the expert on whoever it is I'm helping, because the one I'm helping, they're going to be the expert at least on their problem, right? And I can learn from them and from my past experiences, from learning from people who share their research, share their experience, who I accept mentorship from. Then I can help you on a path that will tremendously be smoother, right? I'm also into mind-body medicine. Understand the interplay between our spiritual health, our physical health, our mental health, all right, our financial health. So I come to you with that and wanting to contribute to the body of knowledge and information that will help us financially move through this time that they're talking about. Resets, Nasara, Jasara, nationalizing resources, this type of thing. And also the upcoming elections, making sure that we have the right mentality to get good results. As people around the world are looking at what is going on over there. What is going on over there in the United States, of America? Not the same. Not the same. I know you adepts know that, but I have to say it because I'm actually amazed at how many people think it is the same. So please, 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 before you fix yourself to stand in any line and put down any vote for any name or whatever, can you please kindly read the Declaration of Independence? Can you please read the Constitution of, or for, or whatever, just at least get an idea of the Constitution for the United States of America, for the United States of America? Can you please Google the Constitution for whatever state that you domicile? Look for the one that is pre-1933. These are just like simple things. Most people I'm talking to you've already done this, and much, 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 much more, much more. So I'm going to just put together some things that I hope will forward this movement of order and peacefulness and having our needs be met. Because whether the funds we use be gold back, silver back, crypto, whatever it is, if our minds are not right, it's not sustainable. And many people are walking in fear, and it's not necessary. It's normal to be fearful when you don't have knowledge. Hosea 4:6, it's a lack of knowledge that my people shall perish. All right. Let me see where I want to start. I'll just tell you about myself from the standpoint so you understand why I've dug so deep into this. I found myself experiencing some problems legally, and I received a consultation from Lamont Maurice L., and he showed me in writing, how my estate was being escheated. He showed me about the 1724 Christian slave codes and that I was being treated in such a manner under those. So he helped me make sense of why my durable power of attorney that I had over a loved one's affairs, why that was not being honored. He helped me understand why I was being accused of lies and why it was that how the system was set up. Really, he didn't say this part, but based on the information he pointed me to in the law, it helped me see that the system is not set up in a way where healthcare practitioners are told the truth. Now, I will say this: Terasol, duty to warn. Social worker will know what Terasol, duty to warn is. Like if I see that there's danger or a matter or issue where someone is in a dangerous situation, it's my responsibility to tell you. Okay, so social workers are healthcare professionals. Don't get it twisted. They're healthcare professionals. They might use their skill set to do other things, but many times those other positions that they're working in, they don't require a social work license. So therefore, if someone is saying, if there is someone from a board, from a state that actually survives off of your estate that you have personally, if they're telling you that you cannot do certain things because you have a social worker license, that is actually unconstitutional. And my protections as a woman, national to, I would say national to Amarak, because I've studied and I feel more comfortable saying that. There's a treaty between the United States of North America and the Moroccan Sultan. It was signed in Marrakesh. Now, I did go on the record to say, okay, that treaty is null and void. However, I don't know fully how that has really been impacted. I will say when I said that, I didn't even have the name of the treaty correct. I did not have the name of the treaty correct. And I didn't understand the impact of not having reached this point where we, as the people, control our government and recognize that we are the government before any treaty could go away. It was taught to me, not correctly, it was taught to me kind of like, the Moroccan Sultan signed the treaty and they violated the treaty. The signers on the side of the United States of North America, violated the treaty. But to my understanding of history, that's not really the full story. Okay. So let me just share with you why I talk about this unconstitutionality. And thank you to Moray Jonabe, who brought forth the information about the overturn of the Chevron deference. So let me see, I pulled it up a little bit. So recently, the Supreme Court made a decision. They put forth a decision, whereas all these administrative tribunal settings where they come up with, statutes and a code and implement a policy, that wherever it's repugnant to the Constitution, that it's not withstanding. Okay. So let me share my screen. So that's what it is in the social work profession. When I was an undergrad, I took a lot of years between undergrad and grad school. And I remember in undergrad, my professors were very much against the licensing process for social workers. And so the way it is now, it's the case, and some boards are more egregious than others, but it's the case that we're told, hey, well, when you receive a license, when you accept a license, because you go through school, you take a test. You don't have to take a test. You can work lots of jobs just from the education. It's good, right? So you take a test and you get your first level of license, and then you're supervised on that license. But there are lots of jobs you can work with. You don't have to. Well, your work is signed off by someone else, but you can even have a supervisory role with the first level of graduate school licenses. All right. So let's see. So they were still very much against it, and I get it. And not everyone passes the test the first time, particularly if English is not your first language. Um, and a lot of the standards, it's good to know, it's good to have, but um, to have to jump through that hoop before you can call yourself a social worker, to them, it wasn't a good idea. Now I can see what has happened. What has happened is they've changed the professional standards. They changed the values. Even so, let's say you've been taught something um, in your master's program having to do with human development. What is life? What is morally correct, right? And then you are put into a situation where if you want to get a good paying job, you have to have a license. So you get the license, you get the job, and now next thing you know, they're mandating that you sit through some class where they're telling you that a man is a woman and a woman is a man and it doesn't matter. Versus a few years before, something that would have been considered a personality disorder is now considered commonplace. And then the licensee is told there's something wrong with them if they question the fact that maybe someone with a penis might not really be a woman just because he feels like a woman, right? So why it's important to understand about the Chevron overturn is because this type of demand is unconstitutional and notwithstanding. And right now, people have signed to contracts that are unconstitutional. So it would be wise to learn how to address those contracts if you happen to be walking in a way that is repugnant to your conscience, right? If you're doing something just to pay a bill or whatever have you. And that's a whole nother thing too, because as social workers, we are responsible to make sure that people reach a high level functioning when it comes to their economics. And the truth is, in law, that the US citizen that would be labeled as a Black person, African American, or whatever have you. It has been said over and over, and as evidenced by the Dred Scott decision, that this is not the 14th Amendment Aboriginal Indigenous person mislabeled Black or what have you, standing in line for benefits. This is actually a fraudulent situation. So you're not told about it, but I'm telling you now, and I will go on the record more broadly, but social workers are not trained on this. And even the child welfare system, all the systems of where we are applying for a little bit of benefit into our own very abundant estate. And this is a matter. Now, the people many times we are helping, they might not have the aptitude to be able to manage their own estate. But the people who, as social workers, social work professionals who are helping hold the system up to do this thing, since we're not educated, we don't recognize like how it is that the system is such that the attorneys want to control what we do or what have you. Now, an honest and educated, upright social worker knows how to communicate and go on the record and stand on the principles upon which they were trained, upon which they passed that test, about making sure someone doesn't sign to something that beyond what is needed, making sure you don't ask questions about their personal life beyond what you need to help them, making sure you don't do something like have them sign a blanket form that you need months down the road because you don't want to go back and get it when you need it. See, we're trained that these things are unethical. But in the legal profession, they don't think that that's unethical because they're doing something called parens patriae, and they're treating you as a ward. Now, what's important to know, because I was just in a situation a few weeks ago, I wanted to do the right thing and make a special appearance on an accusation that was against me. So I went. I knew I didn't necessarily have to go, but I wanted to like go on the record, make everything known. I would have been best doing that in an affidavit form and sending the paperwork in to the court and to the attorney general at the state that I abode. All right. Because, or a domicile is a better word. And this is important too, because I already recognized and gone on the record that I'm not a U.S. citizen. So a lot of the jurisdiction that I give is just that, me giving it. And that's not a good idea where someone is trying to escheat me out of my rights or trespass upon my rights. So what happened to me is I went for the proceeding. Okay, fine, whatever. Went for the proceeding. The person making the accusation against me actually perjured himself. He don't even realize that that's what he did. Try to make an excuse for why he attacked me. All right. So he perjured himself. But then afterwards, they wanted me to sign some papers. I didn't want to sign the papers. But, and I'll say papers with the S, but they presented me with one paper of saying that I was there. So I signed it. I autographed it to say, you know, all rights reserved, all the good stuff, agent, all rights reserved. That was one page. And they said, you have to wait for us to make copies before you can leave. I'm thinking to myself, like, I came in here on my own. Now I got some stranger telling me I'm not allowed to leave as if I'm a child. I'm like, I don't think I want to come back to this. This is not correct because I'm not dead. I was being treated like I was dead. And so long story short, they came back with 2 pages behind the 1 page that I put my autograph to. So you got my autograph on something saying that I agree to everything behind it, but I didn't get that until after the fact. And if that is not a lie and a trick of the enemy. So I'm learning that these are not the venues for someone who wants to be in honor, who's learning how to come in honor. All right. Like Alice in Wonderland. And isn't that what Morpheus said to Neo? Do you want to take the blue pill, stay on the sea of commerce? Or do you want to take the red pill and be on the land and enter into Wonderland, where things are shown you, just like Alice in Wonderland? Things were shown to her at each phase. Watch that movie, watch a couple of the endings. Okay, then go watch The Matrix again. All right, Neo is a neophyte, right? A young one. Me, I'm a neophyte, but I'm learning. Okay, so, and Morpheus, the Moor, like Othello, the Moor, like King George, as in Prince George, the Moor. Okay, so This decision was June 28, 2024. The U.S. Supreme Court overturned the 40-year-old Chevron decision in the case. The case was named Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo. The decision, which was 6-3, ended the practice of the federal courts deferring to agencies' interpretation of ambiguous federal laws. Okay, this is what AI Overview said. I think it's a little bigger than this, and I'll tell you, and I'll tie it in together a little bit. But the new doctrine known as Loper-Bright requires courts to use their own judgment and not, wait a minute. My contact's acting funny. Requires courts to use their own judgment and not automatically defer to agencies' interpretations. The new doctrine known as Loper-Bright requires the courts to use their own judgment and not automatically defer to agencies' interpretation. And so in the United States and the United States of America, Article 3 courts, they go by stare decisis. So you have to look at the decisions before. And so that's why this Dred Scott thing is a thing. The Dred Scott decision a long time ago made it known if you came in your proper status. See, so the proper status for the Aboriginal Indigenous people, Moors, treaty protected. We are treaty protected if we choose to be. So why would we walk around as a debtor when we could walk around as creditors? Why would we walk around as corporate entities and wards of a state when we could walk around as people whose rights, whose God-given rights are protected by the Constitution of the United States of America, the Article 3, Section 2, Clause 1, ambassadors and consuls. Now, in order to receive those protections, we must come from the private side. And this is something that is debatable for some, it's debatable. And the reason I think it's debatable, and they don't teach it that you have to come from the private side and be in trust. But when you read the IRS code and you read the rules for the states, you will see that there is a way out and there is a way to do that, to come from the private side to claim your rights. Now, if you're saying you're a U.S. citizen, you're on the public side. And it's my hypothesis that so many, Moors get arrested, get detained, it's their fault, they're so bad. It's because you keep coming from the public side. You're not coming from the private side. The status I heard with my own 2 ears, it was said that their status is as a U.S. national, and a U.S. national is a U.S. person. A U.S. national is a U.S. person. There are some people who claim the status of Moors, or I shouldn't say the status of Moors, but they're standing, they know that they're Moors. But what they have done to arrange their commercial affairs still puts them on the private side. For instance, I think Brother Sabir Bey shared, a post of his passport, and he shared that with that passport, he's not able to work a job, which is fine for him because that's not what suits him. Now, for my study and reading, I'll just say it now, and I'll build the case for it over the next several minutes, is that if he wanted to participate in certain trade or commerce, it would be as a visa holder. E1 or 2. Visa. Visas give you permission to come into the United States corporation company. And if your entity is not of the United States corporation, because you have a government to government relationship with the United States of America, right? It's a government to government relationship. I can show you that in many of the, well, first of all, even in the Constitution, it says so. All right. And then there are treatises, discussions, writings about the government to government relationship between the United States of America and the American Indians. And some people who have bloodline jus sanguinis rights at the United States of America, Amarak, they choose to be identified more so as American Indian versus Moor. And that is not acceptable to tell people that because they want to be referred to as a certain label, that their blood ain't right. Okay. And this is something that we're just going to have to work out as a people that are here, because if you're not from here, you're not going to get it. And just because people are brown skinned doesn't mean that they have the same estate rights. And we are followers of the law, and we do know what order is. And we can't allow ourselves to be separated in this matter. And our demonstration of being compassionate toward one another and recognizing when the messages that we were told are given just so we can remain divided, we want to look at that. All right. We want to examine that, and we want to examine our egos, and we want to come into order and make it right. Okay. So just bringing this up, that the current practices and standards that licensed healthcare professionals, I'll speak about the one that I have firsthand knowledge about, being the Board of Social Work, and the requirements that every board enforces it a little bit different. You have one state that is totally reasonable and will bat down any frivolous complaints. And then you have another board who's operating in RICO and human trafficking by trafficking the licensees that have signed contracts that are actually null and void, because those contracts only have one signature, and that does not make a valid contract. Okay. So social worker might not know that. And even the attorneys might not know that if they're not schooled in law. Many attorneys are not schooled in the true de jure law. They're very well schooled in processes that support the taking the seas of our estates. And because we're not aware of our rights, we are trespassed upon, and we abandon them unknowingly because we don't have the information to be able to make a competent claim. All right. So as I'm navigating my way to safety, being falsely accused of things, being a victim of an unlawful, illegal eviction, I've come to the conclusion it's important that, yes, it's good to have a good president. That's important. But you know what's more important? The president of your county, the president of the county in which you are a part. And it's part of our responsibility to keep our public officials in check. And it's part of our responsibility to give them the information and the knowledge that they must have in order to do their jobs. If you have it. If you don't know, you don't know, But certain things I've become aware of, and I see the breakdown, and I want to share, because I'm not one to go around suing people and you don't even have the basic information. I have to educate you on what is right and what isn't right. All right. And some states that aren't as well funded, they don't have communications between the sheriff's office and the courthouse and the people. And for some reason, the sheriff, I don't know if they're under threatened arrest or what, but the sheriff is not responsive to the people as they've taken the oath to be. All right. And the sheriffs do have a responsibility to the people, different than the policy enforcers, aka police. All right. So, I love you. I speak in love. I already shared that. And some of my experiences when it comes to logic models, building, analysis, effectiveness, compliance, or what have you. And I'm going to use that understanding and knowledge about compliance and making sure that when you set out to do a thing, you've thought about all the unintended consequences that could come along from doing it before, so that you be careful and not sorry. You want to be careful, not be sorry. You want to plan ahead. All right. Failure or lack of plan is a plan to fail. What is it? Failure to make a plan is a plan to fail. Something like that. All right. So I was studying. I think I shared this before. It was said, "Oh, get rid of the driver's license. It's fraud." Do you know that if someone is a licensed driver, that does not necessarily mean that they must present that driver's license as their identification. Here's where the driver's license is fraud. The driver's license is fraud from the standpoint, first of all, what you're not told about all the bonds behind it or how to collect them. Second of all, where it's used to cheat you out of your right. And that's a problem. Anything that's used to cheat you out of your right to think, to be a people that doesn't have, that's not being taxed for a basic right, which is the right to travel. That's a problem. That is a problem. Now, there's more than one way to handle it. You might want to travel the world. You might want to rent a car. There are lots of reasons why not to just jump out there and rid yourself of a quote unquote driver's license just because it's fraud. Do you know how many fraudulent contracts you were in? Okay. So the way to responsibly come out of them is not to just be like, give that back. And then find yourself subjected to disorganized rideshare systems or trying to get around when there's no bus that goes wherever you want to go a certain time of the day, right? Or have your ride that you want to put in your personal way. You need to have your car, whether it be a car, automobile, whatever you want to call it, it's wise to have it registered in some way, even if that way is a private trust. I don't know about every state, but in the tri-state area around the district, first of all, the district has a way of licensing people. There's a way if you know to look for it. When people talk about all this 10 square miles of the US, right? We need to come together because there's also something called the state of New Columbia or something like that. They have a constitution. Might not have been ratified and accepted, but it's there. It's there. I read it for myself. The state of New Columbia, right? Where they're talking about we want to be citizens. I don't know if y'all want to be citizens. Well, no, you want the right to vote. That's what it is. You want the right to vote. Well, January 6th, how does that, you want the right to vote for the corporation. Things are changing and things are getting better, but I just need people to know the truth. The truth shall set you free. And then we can learn how to apply it. But first we have to know it. And we have to accept that we've not been walking in it. And it's actually better if we do walk in the truth and we support each other into coming into honor. And we support each other into coming into something that is sustainable, okay, and life-giving. All right. And it's higher. Okay. So where was I? Okay. I needed ID. Why? Because I had no quote unquote driver's license. So what's my ID? My national identity card? Do you have a national identity card without having something behind that? Like, I don't know about the cards others have, but the national identity card that I had that I was carrying and the one that I modeled, it had a number on there where it allowed me to operate with some level of not being taxed on items, right? So in that way, it's valid. But I don't know that and it had a thumbprint. It had where I could receive posts and that sort of thing. But what it didn't have, and maybe it was just the one because I created it, but even the ones I saw, I didn't see a unique identifier, right? So like a driver's license has a unique identifier. Guess what else has a unique identifier? Passport has a unique identifier, and it also has an opportunity where you can create an explanatory statement as to who you are. But guess what else probably has a unique identifier? I don't have one YET yet. The visa. Now, what is the visa? The visa is a travel document, but allows you to come into the United States corporation. When do you need to come into the United States corporation? When you go to a public bank. When you, let's say you make a transaction in commerce on some type of card, purchase it on a card, whether it be credit or debit, or yeah, let's say I did that, right? Let's say I lost the receipt and I want to return it. Now, they want some ID to return it if you don't have a receipt. Now, why is that? Because this all connects to your estate and your trust, wherever it is, whether your trust in a state or however you have your affairs arranged, it connects back to you to identify you. Why is this important? At the United States right now, we have a big problem where some police officers don't know, they are not taught, or they're in a culture aware they don't operate in law as it relates to arresting people. Now, I met a very nice gentleman just yesterday. I asked him what he was taught or trained as it relates to an arrest. And he was trained properly at Cheverly Police Department in Maryland. And he told me exactly what a lawful arrest is. He said, if we have a complaint of two people fighting, whatever, somebody said they hit me, even if they got a scar or whatever, he's like, if they're not actively fighting right then, it's like, you take the affidavit, you take the report, which really is an affidavit. You take the report to the commissioner. The commissioner decides whether it's probable cause to create a warrant, if it's justification for a warrant, and then the commissioner handles it. You don't just go arresting people off of some he said that she said that. Now, does that happen somewhere? Yes. As is the case that I was attacked by someone. I was attacked. He's attacking me with one hand, pushing me, shoving me by way of the door, and calling 911 on the other hand, saying, help me, she's attacking me. Well, how am I attacking you if you're trying to come into the room I'm in, that I was actually lawful occupant of, right? So now, because the police don't know that they're to get an affidavit, and they're supposed to take a report from both sides. They're supposed to take that to the commissioner, and the commissioner is supposed to make a decision about moving forward. Now, if the commissioner wants to put themselves on the line like that, that's not smart either. They can be sued too. We all need to learn how to really even decipher what is lawful and unlawful on the land, as different from legal. Lawful and legal are different, two different words. One is their codes and statutes to get more debt credits. All right. Law is natural law, common law. Natural law is like the foundation of common law. It should be anyway. All right. So if people like me don't start talking about these things, then who's going to talk about it? Because I do have a question. I would like someone to do the research and tell me how many of the convictions of a particular candidate for president, how many of those convictions were based upon lawful arrests. So that means there was an affidavit, and then there was the warrant. Then they were picked up on the warrant, and this was based on a crime where there was an identifiable victim, right? And then the person was prosecuted. So statistically, let's find out how many of those arrests were done lawfully. How many of those convictions were based on lawful constitutional arrests, due process, the law of the land. My people already here with the heritage here are protected under the Constitution if you claim it. If you don't claim it, you're not protected. And we want to get to know that there are many things that are used to establish jurisdiction. But first, we have to understand that we do have God-given rights and how to claim them. And it is a process. And there are many factors and many drivers that are barriers to us exercising these rights. It goes deep. Okay. So at the end of the day, I've come to the conclusion that we're to be visa holders. We're to be visa holders to bring us into commerce with the United States. The state of this, the state of that is a subsidiary. It all pours into the federal, well, I'm not going to say federal, into the United States. As differentiated from the United States of America, you see the postal trucks with no licenses on them because they're under international treaties, international agreements. They're not licensed to the state because they're not entities of the state. They're not, the state entity is not benefiting directly from those trucks. They're permitted to be on the land, just like many people have conveyances, but they don't put their conveyances in trust. They just, I don't know. Or even if you don't put it in trust, well, even when you put an injunction on the record, you're putting it in trust to be able to put that injunction in place on the do not disturb list, do not detain. All right. We want to not step on other people's rights. We don't want to trespass upon other people's rights. That's important. Okay, so let me tell you how I've come to the conclusion that it's the visa. So first of all, I think I heard James Levitt and Yusuf L. both mention, the visas are actually the constitutional way to go. Me not being well read, I'm like, okay, whatever. I didn't have a passport. Why? One of the reasons I didn't have a passport at one time, I wasn't holding a passport at one time, is Taj Tariq Bey's teaching on, the passport. Not all that. That's not what you want. You're not stock. You're not this. And so when you try to go along with a national identity card and you're realizing you can't get in the bank, right? You're holding up some voided out ID, some voided out state driver's license. This was a real one. This nationality card is a real one, but this one over here, I just let you know. So you know who I am, but that's not really who I am. Like, that gets tired. So I did go acquire a passport, but without the explanatory statement. Don't do that. Do the explanatory statement. Learn about the process. Do whatever you need to do to have some more than one form of documentation. Okay. Social Security card was stolen. I need to get one with my proper status anyway, saying who I am. All right. As a national non-citizen, that's what I choose. So with that said, birth certificate, I've even had birth certificates stolen. Part of this is the targeting I'm overcoming. All right. But I understand I have to get to the private to properly effectuate that. I've seen lawsuits. I think one of the reasons the lawsuits are not being successful is because the agency suing, they're doing it as a corporation, not as a people. And you can't just say you're a people. You must navigate as a people, do with your agreements and your contracts. And that's a little bit tricky, right? Which one do you do first? Do you, against the targeting, change the contracts? Or how do you make a claim when you're not in your proper status? I'm laying the case here too for those who see this and potentially are in a position to say, hey, we support them who are standing up for righteousness to help move forward our case. Okay. I happen to domicile at a state where they have a non-judicial foreclosure process. This is unconstitutional. Why? Because, well, I'm not going to give you more than you can handle right now, because I want to give you bits of information where you can research it and it'll all come together, right? So first, just knowing who we are in law and how can we ever be blessed or enriched as people when we walk in falsehoods and lies. It's difficult to like just go to the root of the thing and fix it, but that's the proper way to do it, right? Okay. So a few months ago, I went with a loved one to acquire 2 passports because we're not things of the state, and I'm taking away those minimum contacts where someone would mistakenly think that we are, and I'm learning how to privately bank. All right. So I go get the passport for myself. Made the mistake of not doing the explanatory statement. It's okay. It's still better for me, able to navigate when it comes to banking and that sort of thing. Still trying to get all the way private. But my loved one, you know what they told me? They told me, because I went one day with her and I made a promise early on because I have durable power of attorney over her affairs since a health incident. I promised I would never ask you to sign anything. If anyone ever asks you to sign anything and you have not canceled the power of attorney that I have, then whatever they're doing is fraud. And I advise you, because she can sign physically, I advise you that you don't ever sign anything before, like, I'll sign for you or I'll autograph for you. Like, that's not a good idea, because what you're doing is you're opening yourself up to things. And what I won't do is I will not terminate your rights. Why? Because if you ever do get better to the point or where you want to invalidate this durable power of attorney, I want you to have that freedom to do so. And I'm not going to answer to a stranger about caring for my loved one. That is my right as an Aboriginal people, as a people anyway. I have a right to family, or I would prefer to say my kin. I have a right to my kin. As a child, or as a daughter is a better word, as a daughter of my mother, I have a right to help her. I have a right to love on her. I have a right to protect her from the sick care system. Statistically, it's a sick care system. I'm just saying, in all due respect of the loving people who work in that system. Statistically, it is, but they can only do but so much. I went to the emergency room the other day to accompany someone, was there for like 10 hours. Do you know, for a bruise, you know that they didn't even have an ice pack? They didn't even have an ice pack. One of the sisters that was waiting there for a long time too, she kind of pointed to her wrist to say, like, is it because it's like us running it? No, if it was us running it, it wouldn't be that mess. It would be order, right? Because I worked in settings where it's mostly people who look like me, and it's order. All right, so calming down just a little bit. What happened is that brought her one day, and they were like, for some reason you should have. I didn't have the durable power of attorney with me. Didn't have the durable power of attorney. I don't know what I was thinking. Okay, well, they said, well, as soon as you bring that the next day, it's fine. The first they said, well, they let me sign for her, right? And they said, no, she doesn't have to come back the next day. Just bring the durable power of attorney. Everything be great. I did that next day. And then they're like, well, we talked to the attorneys, and attorneys say you have to bring her back so she can put her thumbprint and sign for herself. And I said no, because the thumbprint is for someone, it's not for someone who doesn't fully understand. The thumbprint is for someone who might not be able to sign. Why would I encourage her to put her thumbprint on something she don't understand? She was doing whatever needed to be done because she trusts me, not because she understands the document. Do you see the difference? This is what's called compliance here. So basically, I was being asked to do something that was actually fraudulent, in my opinion. Because to have her put, it's kind of the same thing about the Baby Act. The Baby Act, you put the baby's footprint on a document, but the baby don't understand anything. It's done in the stage of infancy. So, don't have a passport. That's kind of bad because I do know the benefits of the passport I have. I'm not going to talk about the status that it was acquired in, but it's not a U.S. citizen. But I did notice my student loans were getting paid without me, doing anything extra special. It's like, oh, wow, my credit score's gone up. Look at that. That's good, but it's still not the proper place for me in commerce. The proper place for me is as a national non-citizen versus the status would still been a U.S. person. A U.S. national is a U.S. person. I'm going to just say that. I'll just say that without getting all specific. A U.S. national is a U.S. person. And this is why we have to have this conversation, because I need everyone to be clear on the language that we're using and fully knowing what's happening, because I really think that those who are escheating our state, some of them don't know. It might be because they don't want to know. But if they do know, I pray a special awakening for them, because they are putting themselves on the bad side of karma. And I'll explain to you in a little bit about that. I can't believe they know. I can't believe they would play with God like that. I can't believe that. So anyway, now recently, like a few hours ago, I was studying, with all this new knowledge I found, listening and understanding the importance of being on the private side, and knowing that maybe the U.S. national is not really on the private side. Maybe that's why they keep getting arrested or stopped, or, because they're not really on the private side. So with that knowledge, right? With that knowledge, I'm looking at this, knowing that some people have been very successful with the silver bullet, right? Do the explanatory statement, um, fill out the passport application in the proper way. And so I'm studying, I'm reading, and I just remembered that they asked me to take my loved one for guardianship. And I also remember when the power of attorney that I had over the affairs for the corporate, because you do have to come out. You don't just wake up one day and say, yes, I'm free, and then be released from all the contracts. I've seen those statements put out there before. I rescind all contracts. Like, I'm being honest. I know people do it. I know a lot of people do it. I really don't know why you do it, because they don't pay you any attention. You have to do each contract. Now, I get it. From this, you did give notice. Okay. They don't care. Each contract. Just my observation. Okay. So I remember early on when I first, was responsible for handling the affairs. Everything's great. Credit scores from 730 go up to 800. And I'm like, yeah, I need to get a whole life policy and this and that. And so I talked to this agent that I respected. I said, do you know of a good attorney? He's like, well, I do know someone. Talked to this lady. She used to teach law school and everything. And I was, talking a little bit about what I was going through. And she was just like, you know what? No matter what you do, you be a good daughter. You do not take your loved one for guardianship. She's like, they're just doing that to escheat the state. I've done so many papers about it. She told me the articles. I didn't go read them. I wish I remembered which ones they were, but I will do some research. But she said, no, they're just doing it to get hold of her estate. And then I was telling her about the challenge I was having enforcing the power of attorney, because they were escheating the loved one's account of like double gifts for mortgages. Now that I realize that that's unconstitutional too, and it's actually in violation of UCC, Uniform Commercial Code. All right. So I didn't realize that at the time, but anyway, it is what it is. It wasn't like I thought it was. It is as it is. It's an escheat and it's fraud. All right. So I thought it was real convenient that they would tell me, no, we don't take that. We think you should, take your loved one for guardianship. Excuse me, Miss Attorney. Like, who are you to tell me how to run my life? Who does that? Like, you don't know anything about me. And like, who are you to do that? And so I found that it is a culture at a particular state to run this RICO racket. And that's what it is. Even the nonprofit center who's supposed to help people with legal problems, they don't talk to the power of attorney. And this professor told me she's had conversations with attorneys and had to lay it down to them, the power of a durable power of attorney. And she's like, they're so misinformed. So now you have a whole bunch of folks who are in the position of attorneys who are stealing people's estates. It's stealing when you're not acting in law, when you're violating the Constitution of the United States of America, when you're violating the treaties, you're violating the law of the land to which you have taken oaths to make people homeless, to take them away from what they've earned. They're supposed to be secure in their property, in their persons, and they are not. And you're a part of that. And just like I said, ignorance of the law does not excuse you. So with this being said, I was looking at this passport. Now, first of all, on the front of it, I'm calling for a commitment to us, for us to say what we mean and mean what we say, because that is how change takes place. You can't, when you, okay, like I said, I used to be a hairstylist, right? When someone says they want their hair to be red, I don't just assume I know the shade of red that they want. Okay, you could have red tones all the way from 1, like a reddish black, to 10, which is like a very warm, like blonde. Oh, maybe not 10, but 7, 6. No. 1 is black, 10 is blonde. So 9, you have a reddish. Okay. People who in art know, you know that there's violet red, there's an orangey fiery red. There's so many different shades of red. When you want consistent results, you want excellence, you don't make assumptions about what red we're talking about. Who does that? It's 2024 on a Gregorian calendar, right? And that's just our calendar. Our calendar ain't the only calendar. So let's just get that straight. Our culture isn't the only culture. And so we have to be really specific, and law is specific. And then when we're communicating with people, we want to communicate from the standpoint of where we're understanding what they are communicating, not saying, well, you must have meant such and such because you said, like, what kind of childishness is this? When we communicate, we listen from the standpoint of trying to understand what it is that someone's trying to communicate. And then we actively listen by saying, are you saying that such and such? We don't cut people off in the middle of what they're saying and tell them what they meant or what they must have meant or what they should have said. None of this. We are moving into excellence here. And so we're fine tuning. All right. So if someone says that they're an attorney and they're barred, you need to find out, no matter what your school professors told you, so that you all could escheat people's estates, because there is a state right next to the District of Columbia where most of the acting judiciary, the magistrates, go to a particular school right there next to the particular school of social work, where all of a sudden they don't know how to know what right from wrong is. They forgot everything they learned in a master's program and do exactly what an attorney who has no education in their field tells them to do. That actually invalidates their license because they're operating outside of their professional standard practice. Okay. So we must go on what's true, not on what somebody told you. We're not in the season of I think, I feel. We're in the season of truth. We're in the season of what, the wheat and the tares being separated. Okay. And there's no excuse, because a lot of what you could even go to archives.org to find different papers. You can get the PDFs of different files. Ask AI. They probably would tell you what a lawful arrest is. 1983 Title 42 lawsuit. The insurance companies that bond these folks' activities, they'll tell you what lawful is and lawful isn't. Because, see, sometimes when people do things that are egregious, you can't insure, just you can't get insurance for when you do something straight egregious. They're not going to pay for that. And then punitive damages are unlimited. There might be some statutory maximums on stuff, but punitive damages are unlimited. So if you're in a professional position, if you're a whatever attorney or this or that, your quote unquote immunity can be stripped from you. We're going back to the Republic. So there's no safety in what you feel or what you think, and you writing hearsay. If you haven't been trained properly, consider this notice. You might want to find out what the real law is, so that you're not used and you don't lose your career off of what you felt. Now, I do really think that I will put forth funds for people who want to rehabilitate their way back into honor once somebody sues the pants off of you for hurting them and violating their constitutional rights, right? But but in the meantime, let's read. Let's humble ourselves. Okay, so now let's say you go to a passport office, not the actual consular. It's a Bureau of Consular Affairs, not the post office. Post office is on the land too. We already talked about the postal trucks. The post office is like bank. But let's say you go like right near outside of DC in Virginia. I think that's Virginia, right on the line. Because DC was carved out of Maryland and Virginia, Maryland, like Virgin Mary, Virginia, Maryland. Okay. Anyway, when you go there's a sister standing right there, like natural hair and everything. If you do acquire a passport, then you'll see they sign with the red pen. Sister signing with the red pen. Don't even realize she's what she's doing. Okay. They're on the land. But do you know, oh, here's another opportunity. Let me just say something. I'll talk about this a little bit later. If there's a banker out there, you high up somewhere doing some banking, and you know that the people on the front line don't know the difference between a U.S. citizen, a U.S. national, a United States of America passport. They don't know where they are and how they got there because you've hired them from some other continent to come over here and they don't know any civics, but yet someone like me's coming in to do some banking and put things in the proper way, and they don't know anything. Listen, the thing that the word is about Nasar Jassar and the changes that are coming and the people being restored back to be able to operate in a way that's sustainable, right? But you know that you have not trained your workers. Can you ask for help? I know y'all are secret about a lot of things, but it seems to me like you should be able to say, my staff ain't trained. My staff is not trained and I need some help. It seems like that is like minimal, because I would be embarrassed to be in. I'm gonna look up who it is in charge of this particular bank, CEO of this particular bank. This is just utterly ridiculous that there's not an opportunity for somebody to say, no, I'm not a U.S. citizen. We know who we are now. We know who we are now. So I don't know why you're setting yourselves up like that. It's embarrassing for you. Anyway. So here's the situation I'm faced with, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do what is truthful, but it made me research more. Okay. So I'm looking at the DS-11 and I'm going down little things, and I look at the signature line, and there's a particular part where it says, I affirm or I declare I am either a U.S. citizen or I'm a national of United States, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I know I'm going to do explanatory statement, but am I? I know I'm not a U.S. citizen. Am I a U.S. national? Am I a national of the U.S.? Am I? Now, like I said, I'll do the explanatory statement and they'll probably give me the visa. But is there more? And then the line also says this is either for, the signature of the parent or the guardian or the natural person. So I'm like, wait a minute. I'm not anybody's parent, because remember, I'm caregiver for someone. I'm not anybody's parent. For the one for my own estate, I natural person. And once you receive the passport, you don't even have to sign it, and there's nothing on it that has your signature. So you can put your autograph on there the way you need to, according to how you're going to bank or whatever. Because actually, that's why I got it, because I don't have to have a passport to travel. I do know that. I do know that there are redress numbers. I know that there's a birth certificate. The evidence is my state. Bill of lading. All right. So I'm looking at this thing. Let me see if I can share that with you. If I could see. Now, I want to share you. I'm talking about share screen. Share screen. Let me take a chance. This might be it. Nope, that ain't it. I'm going to show you this DS11. Now, I feel like I'm not sharing this. It's not looking like it's sharing. Oop. Oop. It's not sharing. All right. I'm going to do this. Thank you for your patience. You can just fast forward a couple seconds if I take too long, because I'm not going to change context right now. Boom. All right, here we go. Here we are, right here. And it says, I declare, under penalty of perjury, all of the following. Rest in peace, Brother Divine, Patrick Divine. So, let's kind of get over it. We should be able to declare something. And if we're telling the truth, we should be able to say, okay, like under the penalty of perjury, like what's the big deal? In my understanding of it. Okay. So that's not a problem. But it says here, I am a citizen or non-citizen national of the United States. See, I think I would like to see it say non-citizen national of the United States of America. I just think that would make me feel more comfortable. But then it says, and I have not performed any of the acts listed under the acts or conditions on page 4 of the instructions of this application, unless explanatory statement has been attached. See, so you want to read this. This is a whole nother topic right here, but you probably want to consider doing explanatory statement. But anyway, can't tell you what to do. I'm just saying others who have found this to be life-changing, they've done an explanatory statement. Okay, the statements made on the application are true and correct. I have not knowingly and willingly made false statements or included false documents in support of this application. Now, I'm applying. I'm talking about I'm sovereign, but I'm applying. But it's already a record that even though a people who might have less power are in that position, that their sovereignty is not to be questioned. They are the sovereigns. All right. So because see, my people, I don't know that we have a military. I don't know. It feels so much right now that our military that's supposed to be protecting us is actually attacking us with the 706 targeting. Okay. So I'm coming up out of that though. All right. A lot of us are. We're coming up out of it. The photograph attached to this application is genuine, current, photograph of me. And I have read and understood the warning on page 4 of the instructions to the application form. So now if someone comes down here and they put their thumbprint on it, that means they understood all of this. And for some reason, they cannot sign their name. They just happen to put their thumbprint there. So now if I support something like that, is that me being truthful? I don't think so. I don't think I'm being truthful if I supported somebody putting their thumbprint on this. Okay, now with that said, here is either the applicant's legal signature, all right, or the second line is the mother, father, parent, or legal guardian's signature. There, and then if identifying the minor. So I don't feel comfortable telling somebody in their state of infancy, as someone who has a guardian or a guardian ad litem, they're in a stage of infancy. For whatever reason, there are about 3 reasons that they will be incompetent to make a claim of their estate. Either they've forgotten or they're ignorant to it. There's a third reason that they would not, I think, infancy. Yeah, infancy, they've forgotten who they are, or incompetence are the reasons that people don't make claims to their estate. So that's a minor for you. So now if someone is in a state of minority, I don't know. What does that say about me if I'm trying to convince them to put their fingerprint on something they don't understand? It's a little inconsistent, not compliant. Okay, so then mother, father, parent, legal guardian signature. So there's no one who I'm legal guardian over, because I do not submit to the jurisdiction of the corporate fiction at the state of which I've been maltreated by. So if that's the case, where is there on here really for me to help my loved one acquire identification that is appropriate for them? Now, mind you, if it was a national identity card, it would still have to tie into some other number. Well, I guess that's a good reason to start a nation, isn't it? Well, that's another story, because not to say that can't happen, but time is moving. And so with that being said, in order for something to be done right, you want to properly plan. All right, so it made me just like say, well, wait a minute. Didn't some people already say this is not really like the constitutional way of doing it? Didn't somebody already say that's not the constitutional way to do it? So I'm like, let me read this visa thing. Went to visa, US visa. Now, I think there might be more than one. Now, see, US visas, boom. Now, you can print out the form. You don't have to do it online. Let me just skip to what I found to be very interesting. There's some terms I want you to be aware of, which is non-immigrant visa and immigrant visa. Non-immigrant visa and immigrant visa. So, mind you, I did find on the E1 and the E2. Wait a minute. The E1 and the E2. Oh, this is the appointment time. No, I don't want to do it like that. Let me get back to this. Okay. I looked up the E1 and the E2. And the E1, all right, let me just bring this forth. I'm going to skip a little bit. I'm here in the United States of America. I'm Iraq, right? So if I'm here, United States of America, I'm Iraq, which is not the same thing as the United States Corporation and the fictitious bankrupt state. Am I an immigrant or a non-immigrant? Because the state is on the land and the states are dependent upon the estates. So am I an immigrant or a non-immigrant? I think I would be a non-immigrant. I don't think I would be an immigrant to the U.S. corporation. I think I would be a non-immigrant. And I found that if you have, you can have two statuses. It's an E1 and an E2. And do you think that if I'm a non-immigrant, but let's say I want to maintain a social work license, but I don't want to have my estate escheated. I don't want to be told that I'm violating the license if I think without their permission. Or if I don't have a license, then I'm not allowed to think. I'm not allowed to, let's say, be a scrum master, or I'm not allowed to work in a field or in a position that doesn't require a license. But they still want to find me, even though I didn't do anything against the NPI, the National Provider Number, right? That I insure. I provide the insurance for that National Provider Number through my estate. So let's just say I want to participate with the U.S. Wouldn't it be appropriate for a non-immigrant visa, right? Because, well, for you to know what that is, you would have to know what the E1 visa is. You would have to know what the E1 visa is. All right. It's a non-immigrant classification. It allows a what? A national, which is what I'm saying I am. That's what I declare. A status as a national of a treaty country. Now, was it not the case that it's a treaty relationship for the purpose of commerce between Morocco and the United States of North America, in which some of our God-given rights are protected by treaty? Well, I shouldn't say all, but yeah, our God-given rights are protected by treaty and Constitution. And the Constitution is bound by the treaties, Treaty of Tripoli as well. So if our protection comes from the treaties and that there is a government to government relationship between the nationals and the citizens of the United States, then why wouldn't a non-immigrant visa be appropriate? Now, E1 is investor, and I think that's the way it is, and E2 is trader. Forgive me if I'm wrong on that. But, what comes up for me with that is that I'm put in a position where I would actually be not telling the truth to get a passport. That might not always be the case for people. So I'm not criticizing people who use the passport to correct their status. For me, maybe I could do that. But for my loved one, I would still need to have a visa and include them as a member of my little village. They say family. I don't like the term family. I know what it means. But to include them without asking them to sign. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? So, as I saw that, I saw something else. I'm going slow with this because I know that the Secretary of State doesn't recognize this because he seems like an intelligent man. And there's something here, there's a difference between standing and status. And I've not really found this in law, but I think David Straight first mentioned this and it resonated with me, like people have standing and persons, natural persons, which is a type of person, not the same thing as the people. They have a status, right? So just knowing that there's a difference is, I think, important. Yeah, it's important to know. Okay, because a natural person is just not the same thing as a people. Now, it's an entity. An individual is an entity. In my understanding, an individual and a natural person would be about the same. Because it's like a natural person has rights in commerce. A natural person could even be a trust, right? So I say these things to say, let's be careful about the words we use, because if we are not defining them accurately, we won't be able to move forward to make the shift. And it's such a profound shift, and it's a big opportunity for change that we don't want to miss it. And so something like misunderstanding about, well, I mean this when I say individual. When I say individual, I mean a living man. Are you sure? Or do you mean the natural person? And a trust can be a natural person. So when you say man or woman or people, like, just know when I see things like where people receive posts, it says where people receive, because that's what they mean, because it's on the land. Now, is someone allowing their corporation to inappropriately encroach upon the land and break treaty and violate like the laws of war? There are rules to war. So just because you establish a commercial activity, an admiralty and maritime on the land or on the republic, and the republic and the land in an inappropriate manner, it doesn't mean it's okay. And that's why I'm like, y'all must not fully understand this, because if you did, you would not be playing around with Mother Nature and Yah in such a way. I don't think you would. But hopefully, once I keep teaching and getting down to the specifics, you will see and you will awaken and self-correct. But what will not happen is someone notice this and it not be spoken in love and give you the opportunity to correct yourself, and not in any type of shame, not because you got sued for millions of dollars or whatever. Because I met somebody recently and he said he keeps getting sued. Well, why you keep getting sued? Do you really not know what is like a ethical way of handling a situation? Like, maybe you don't. So I will teach you in love. E1 treaty traders. Our protections come from the private side. It takes a trust to, I don't know if I say a trust to break a trust, but a trust can change ownership. When a trust changes ownership per IRS, it's appropriate to have another EIN number. So why is it the case that you call IRS? Because certain things you have to do on the phone, because see, only a people can do it on the phone. So why is it I call IRS? And I'm looking at the form that they publish for everyone to be able to use and be able to read the IRS manual. And I follow instructions. I'm reading it. I'm saying what I'm wanting for it, what I want. And they're, you know, that's not what it says for me. Well, why is that? That's not fair. That's not fair to the one calling in, trying to be an honor. And it's not fair to the employees to present to them something different than what is presented to us. If the SS4 says that certain individuals can acquire an EIN, then it shouldn't take talking to 3 and 4 people for certain individuals to acquire the number. Okay. And I'm grateful I was able to accomplish things. I'll teach on that. I learned a lot. You know, you have to read. You can have the greatest ever mentor, but if you don't read what they're reading, then you cheat yourself and you waste a lot of time. You know, when I was in school, I would always read ahead. I would always take notes in a way as if I was testing myself when I took the notes. And then when I went to the lecture, I was able to enjoy it because I actually knew what they were lecturing about. And then when they brought forth other reading that they wanted you to read right there in class, it was a breeze. You know, you cannot fake this thing. And so it's important to read and to say, I don't understand. And if you see that there's inconsistency between what you're reading and what you're doing, you have the responsibility to bring it forth and to say, I'm not going to be used in that manner. Okay. So a treaty country nationality. I'll just read this. As of December 23, 2022, section 101. I hope I'm keep going. You know what? This is over an hour. I hope this whole thing posts. Anyway, the immigration is the section 101A15E of the Immigration and Nationality Act was amended to define the eligibility criteria for e-visas. Section 5902 of the James M. Imhoff National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2022, Public Law 117-263, December 23, 2022, 136, Stat 2395, for all E1 and E3 filings received on or after December 23, 2022. Let me just skip a little bit. Now, asking for additional documentation related to how the applicant obtained treaty country nationality to ensure the compliance with the amended language. So let me be clear. Someone can say they are treaty protected, right? You want to see the treaty. You want to know what the treaty is. What we're reading about right here is E1 treaty traders, right? And this is for non-immigrant. The status of my commercial person would be a non-immigrant to the United States of America. So if you're not United States of America, that means you would be an immigrant. You would be immigrant. I can't believe, after what I read, that we're clear on what the difference is. Now, someone has changed the meaning of the word non-immigrant to be something else. Now, the Secretary of State has the authority or the the right to waive an interview for a non-immigrant. And understandably, because me in my situation being a non-immigrant to the US, you full well know who I am. You full well know the certificate of live birth is evidence of my estate. You full well have my footprint. You full well have a lot of things. You probably have my DNA and some more stuff. You have all my records. You have everything about me. Why wouldn't you waive an interview? Why wouldn't you waive an interview? Contrast to all the folks who came over on non-immigrant visas to the number of 7.1 million. Let me find this. There was a report for DHS. Oh, let me go back a little bit. Foreign state, a foreign state. As evidenced by Morocco consular court, supposed to be a foreign state to the US. And, this is where this conversation is very sensitive. It's very sensitive because this is an age of truth, and we're starting to have a deeper understanding and awakening about things. So it's definitely a foreign state from the fact that they have a treaty relationship, right? So you have to come to an agreement, two different governments coming to an agreement. So they're foreign states to each other. But at the same time, with things that were done to hold on to our birthright because the Moors were told to step down or die, that's not good, right? But with that said, mistake, unknowingly, whatever, U.S. national is still a U.S. person. So on one hand, it's a foreign state, but on the other hand, there is that meshing together. Or, yeah, I'll use the word mesh, so that the differentiation is not clear, right? So foreign state, for the purposes of alternate chargeability pursuant to INA 202B, is not restricted to those areas to which the numerical limitation prescribed by INA 202A applies, but includes dependent areas, right? That sister standing up there at the passport office, yeah, you all are dependent. You all, when I say you all, I mean the public servants and the trustees of the United States are dependent upon the land. It's a dependent area, but it doesn't mean it's not a foreign state. Very interesting. That's just like the treatises on the treating of the American Indians and saying, like, just because you're like weaker, it doesn't mean that you're not sovereign. And there are more and more of us who have been denationalized and genocided. There are more and more of us waking up to say, I've been operating in commerce as a daggone U.S. citizen. Oh my goodness. And the only reason we're waking up is because of the mistreatment. Because, you don't have to mistreat somebody to wake them up, though. I mean, that's kind of low level, How about just like leave them alone and stop targeting, stop being unconstitutional in how you're coming across. And that's a good way to like allow people to wake up. So that's actually something that we need to talk about, right? Because we shouldn't have to spend a half a day trying to acquire an EIN that puts you on the private side, right? So for me, I think I am going to apply for a visa. I might apply for a visa and a passport, or the other way around, a passport and a visa. They also have something called a DS-60. A DS-60 that kind of helped me understand too about this jurisdiction, because the DS-60 form has to do with the name change, right? But the name change, they want something from the courts to say I changed my name through the courts. So if I got to change my name through the courts, that means it's coming from the jurisdiction of the courts. Now, mind you, put that together with the times I've been mistreated in court or treated like I didn't even exist. So am I coming in asking for this passport in the state of dead? Is it rising me up from the dead to get the passport? Or am I putting myself, I don't think I'm putting myself in more bondage, but in my particular situation, I would have to go and do something that I don't think is in line with truth in order to get it. And so that's why I'm leaning toward not trying to acquire it for my loved one, at least maybe for me, but not for my loved one. And my loved one needs something because the state ID is inappropriate at how they've been mistreated by the state. Yep. So I get the intention is good, but like my grandmother said, the path to hell was paved with good intention. So when we come into what is this, about 2024, 180 years after the Great Disappointment, all those people's lands were taken away. They gave, I don't know, I guess they got gold or silver for it. I don't know. They thought that Jesus was going to come, even though I'm sure that Mason knew the allegorical meaning of that. But those people's lands were taken in the hope of something that he knew was not going to happen then. Okay. So here's the thing. It's just time for us to humble ourselves a little bit and say, man, there is a way of escape on every level. What part of what I'm doing is not in truth? What part of what I'm doing can I peacefully correct with the point of knowing that we're moving into, well, we're just getting going, right? With Aquarius, with the season of Aquarian, and not that far after April 6th and the eclipses and everything. And their energy is changing. And I want to be one who really encourages people to dig deep, right? And just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean it's wrong. That's not how you decide if something is right or wrong, with how it feels. You decide if something is right or wrong based on the laws. And then always there is a way of escape. And those who are original and indigenous to the lands were given the lands back by the Pope. In 2014, it was told to relinquish. Now, I understand with gratitude, and Evan Reese spoke for Pope Francis, right? But there's so much that does go on right at the United States of America, right? It's not like one state of peoples is having a fight with another state of peoples. Like our next door neighbors are not fighting each other openly anyway with violence. Yes, with psychological torture and these type of games. Yes, people are for hire that way. But it's no bloodbaths and intense to the eye like on other continents. So there are virtues here, and it is not the case that in this season that one would like tear the house down before everything is transferred over. I know people who are like victims of these unlawful foreclosures, because now that we're understanding what the foreclosure is, you know why I say that. So people who are victim, they're kind of bitter. So they tear the house up before it goes back to the bank. But there's no tearing up. The people here, we've been through enough. The Aboriginal Indigenous peoples been through enough. And those who came here for a reason, for relief too. So they're not less people. They might not have the same rights in a state law, but that doesn't mean that they're not deserving of their God-given rights. So I don't know. I would love a little bit of feedback on this. I already know what is compliant, what would be compliant on my part or not. And I would not be 100% true and correct beyond the statement, the bottom part of the statement. I wouldn't be true and correct for how I would be able to autograph it. And what happens is, let's say you go through the process and you don't do it just like they want you to do it. They say that those funds are unrefundable. They're not refundable. Now, of course, there's probably a way to go back and claim the securities on that. Claim it OID if you do it through trust. All right. Maybe some people are doing OID with 1040 now, but last I checked, somebody doing a 1040, he was explaining himself to the IRS and facing prison time. So I've seen people do that. And I don't know, maybe because you're backing your birth certificates with gold, then maybe you're immune. But the last I checked, you don't want to do an original issue discount and not do it in trust and file your 1041 with it, right? Original issue discount, you've issued something into commerce and then you get a discount for it. You get a credit back to yourself. Uh-oh, it's getting late. It's getting late. Sorry. But, thank you for my chat. Okay. Standing and status is very close, but I like to use standing, talking about a people, and status as it relates to a natural person. That's just me. Yeah, non-citizen national of the United States. Tell me about that. Or am I national of Amarak? The creditor side, the people, not the corporate debtor side. And the president, that he stands under the flag without the gold trim around it for the State of Union address. See, two different jurisdictions. The flag with the gold and without the gold are two different jurisdictions. One is to the republic for which the flag stands, and the other is to the corporate. And you know what? We do need an agency and an organization to keep some of the public services going because it can't be done any other way. Imagine if every state had to come together separately without this federal organ to come upon different agreements. Even our healthcare, it all goes to the Department of Health and Human Service, right? So when we find ourselves walking in truth, if we hold everybody to walking in truth, oh man, everything is beautiful. And first, you want to hold yourself to being in truth, right? Hold yourself to being in truth. When you hold yourself to being in truth, those around you don't have any other choice but then to join you. That's just what it is. So I think that is why there is the consular court in Maryland anyway. And I see why people aren't convinced that it's legitimate. And at the same time, I see the need for it. I also see why some people are successful and some people aren't, right? It's not that far from the administrative process. It really isn't. It really isn't. So just something to think about. Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raymondo. Read that. And that would be at least the second decision this year, giving the power back to the people. I'm just going to speak very briefly on Roe versus Wade. because I want to and I need to. All right. The truth is in law that it is thought, life is thought to begin at inception. Now, if every clinic, operator, nurse, whatever, doctor, they signed, they made it whoever is getting this abortion signed to the fact that they know life begins at inception in law. Because, see, the thing about it is they're monetizing that not just for the procedure, but for the material that comes from these procedures, from the utero, right? They're monetizing that. They're monetizing that. So it's only appropriate that they tell you, or maybe read it. Maybe it says so on the consent form. I don't know. Like I said, I helped someone at the hospital the other day, and you know how many things I put a line through? No, I do not agree to surgery unless you talk to me. No, I do not release you from liability if one of your contractors hurts me. No, because you hired them and you put them up like as if they were quality workers. So no, you would be liable too. You know. Um, no, I do not release any benefits that would be due me. No, thank you. Um, yes, I don't qualify for that public benefit anymore. So, since you're using that to experiment on me and some more stuff, no, I'm gonna need the financial assistance form. And then when you get that form, you find out at the bottom of it, it's like if you've been done wrong or this or that or the other, oh, like you let my loved one fall and you didn't tell me. Oh, like you were doing an experiment on them. Oh, you misdiagnosed them. Stuff like that. Like I can write about stuff like that. And I'm not going to write and complain. You're supposed to write and make a claim. And it's your responsibility. And I'm not saying it like pointing my fingers. I'm saying it to myself as well. And that's part of why I'm speaking to you now, because it is so much. It is so much that it's difficult to like keep on top of it. But if I do have my StreamYard, which I do today, then I'm going to come and talk to you about it. And then I'm going to go back and write it up. And you'll have this to refer to hopefully, help you gain some clarity. And I think I'm talking to leaders here. All right. So forgive me for making it so long and informal, but it was necessary for me to do that because, well, you weren't going to get it out of me any other way this evening with my sleepiness. But I want you to go to 22 US code 2714 and go to the whole thing about the responsibility of the Secretary of State as it relates to immigrant visas. It's a different set of responsibility than the non-immigrant. Oh, well, I was supposed to share something else with you. It's totally unbelievable. Totally unbelievable. This. Boop, boop, boop. Present. I feel a little cheated on this right here. I feel a little bit cheated. I felt like my birthright was really being stolen. Now, we already talked about We already talked about immigrant and non-immigrant. Now, I didn't read it for you, but you will see that it's a little more stringent, for immigrant. Am I in the right place? It's a little more stringent for immigrant than non-immigrant. And everything has a cost. When people make these decisions, particularly for the federal government, they have a cause. So even with my power of attorney not being accepted for the passport process and being told to go back for a guardianship, why is that? It's because we're being held as wards, and with the bonds and everything, it's just like this is under the state jurisdiction. That's what it is. You can use it to come out if you can, which it does help you come out. But coming in, that's what we're basing it on. I don't agree with that. I think the power of attorney, durable power of attorney, should be accepted. That's my take on it. There might be something in the law I don't understand. I recognize that too. Okay. But this right here, this isn't nice at all. This is terrible. Look at this. Look at this. This is not acceptable. This needs to be corrected. This is June 25, 2024, the management alert. The CBP has limited information to assess, interview, waived non-immigrant visa holders. Now, we didn't get into the nitty detail, but I already said who was an immigrant and a non-immigrant. An immigrant is someone who's not at the United States of America. And guess what? People might say they have the right to travel. They have the right to travel. Well, if they're operating on the public, they're not operating in their right to travel, are they? Aren't they operating in their citizenship of whatever corporate citizenship they came from? And then they kind of come over here and as saying they're using their right to travel and get all these funds, whereas the people whose estate that this whole thing is built upon is struggling. But yet people like just say, oh, they have the right to travel. Well, then how about you don't give them any subsidies either? Don't give them any subsidies over here. Why don't you subsidize them where they are? And instead of me saying it like, why don't you? I'm going to say, how about we? How about we? How about we? All right. So this thing, a memorandum for Troy Miller, senior official, performing the duties of Commissioner of the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Now, I'm going to make this fast because it's 16 pages. But long story short, I read that there have been about 7.1 million individuals right here. 7.1 million individuals without conducting an in-person interview. Let me just go from the beginning of the sentence. According to the DOS, from calendar year 2020 through 2023, it granted non-immigrant visas to approximately 7.1 individuals without conducting in-person consular, Bureau of Consular Affairs, Secretary of State, Bureau of Consular Affairs, interviews. Wait a minute. You don't know these people? They're coming from over the border, but yet me, at my own estate, you know everything about me. And 7.1 million individuals without conducting an in-person consular interview have been granted permission to come over. And then I don't know what's happening with them. But I'm just saying that's a little alarming. And either those who are allowing this, either they know and they might be fearing the wrath of the Most High Yah right now, or they don't know. And I'm saying to them, please read. Please read. All right. See, March 2024, DOS began providing DHS and CBP with information on visa holders who did not receive interviews. They hold a visa, but no interviews. But I can't even open up an account in my proper person at a local bank for somebody who's not from this continent telling me, you are a U.S. citizen. No, that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable. All right. So we got a little issue here. And the issue is that we done bumped our heads, most of us, and don't know we're already home. But a lot of us do know we're home, right? We're home, and the IRS agents, while they're there until they're not there, while they're there, need to have the right forms where they be able to impact and enact the law that is there, the law that is in the IRS manuals. It's about 1 to 5 or 6 from the calls that I've been on. I might have to call 5 or 6 times to get one thing. And for it to not be accessible would be slavery. It would be bondage. It would be involuntary bondage. To not make a way of escape for the people. To not make a way for the mothers to help other people. Okay. Thank you for listening to me. Ooh, I'm more than sleepy. And so, excuse me for going around in a circle right now. All right. But I just really wanted to share that. Hopefully it'll be open up a conversation about which way to navigate. Open up a conversation for those of you who have the passport as a non-citizen national, and then you have your tribal name or your spiritual name, and then for some reason, I get it, you like, oh, I need a passport for that name. Do you need a passport for that name, or do you need a visa for that name? I don't know. Maybe you need a passport. But thank you for letting me bounce that around with you. Peace, love, lots and lots of love. Unconditional love. All right, you have a good night, and I do look forward to sharing some other big things, things to support the sheriffs, right? So that they're not compelled to participate in any kind of fraudulent evictions, particularly these evictions that are resulting from the homeowner. Support for them, that they have a list of, okay, is everybody in the household notified, and prove that. They need volunteers to help them with that. All right. So I got goodies for you, and I'll share them with you as I'm able. All right. Peace and love. Nuts. All right. Here we go.